USC 10.5, Matt Green. I'm going to call it. This is where we disagree. I am going under on the Trojans winning 10.5 games this year. Am I right that this is our first disagreement?
You would be incorrect, sir,
Oh,
because I
no.
just don't. You can't. You got to play defense, and with USC, it's not a super difficult schedule. Like it in terms of like what some of these teams in the Pac-12 are facing. They do add Notre Dame on, like Stanford does, and they have to go at Notre Dame. But I like Oregon a lot this year. I like Washington. I like Utah. Like Utah has had their number. Like that, how many times in a row now has Utah beat them? Like they do get that one at USC, but I think this team has 10-2 written all over it because I just think when you're that flawed on one side of the football, like I just and this conference is really good this year. I think some of those Big 12s that Lincoln Riley was able to get through with Oklahoma, like where there was one other good team where there one year they got to the college football playoff by Baylor being their only ranked win, and they just beat Baylor twice. It's like we had no idea how good Oklahoma that was that year, but we know they were better than Baylor. So I think the Pac-12 is stronger this year than a lot of those Big 12s were, honestly, under Lincoln Riley. And I don't think being as flawed as they are on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're just bound to maybe not even lose to one of the other big names out there, but maybe just not show up a week against Arizona or against Arizona State or something, or Colorado. Like I just think when you don't have a defense, like you can get in a shootout with anybody.
That's fair. Like, he's very loyal to Alex Grinch. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Todd Grantham stuff. Like, Dan Mullen sticking with Grantham for a little bit too long at Florida. Did that end up costing him at Florida, his loyalty there? I mean, you saw it at Georgia, Mark Richt, and his loyalty to certain guys, that it was just like, dude, you gotta cut bait. Sometimes it's hard, but loyalty can be tough. And Heupel hasn't had to deal with that yet, but he is a very loyal guy, and he's promoting from within, from his staff. Like, that's very important to him to keep his guys in house. And I wonder, just the defense is really, really bad once again, which I think it's gonna be bad again. You're like, you just burned 2 years of elite, best quarterback in the country play because you just refuse to address this defense. Like, it cannot continue to be the thing where you're just like, the thing about USC, that defense was bad last year, but they were also incredibly lucky. Like, their turnover margin, we talked about in the program, like their turnover margin was stupid in the Pac-12. Like, they were elite. They were in a league of their own in forcing turnovers and not giving up any turnovers last year. That was their bread and butter. I don't see that that carrying over this year. I don't see them being that exceptionally lucky and forcing that many turnovers and the offense not turning the ball over to that extent last year. Like, their turnover,
Hard thing to sustain for sure.
Yeah, they take a step back. They don't have the dudes. I'm not a believer in this defense. And you could sell me on, look, Caleb Williams was pretty amazing and he'll be good again, but this schedule for USC down the stretch, whoever did USC's schedule did them a gigantic disservice, because they are looking.
It depends, though.
Well, here's what I would say. This schedule is lining up where it's like, oh, the beginning of this season, it's going to be like USC is going to be put in the first college football playoff rankings. Everyone's going to talk about this start for USC. Caleb Williams going back-to-back Heisman. He's going to put up big-time numbers. This schedule just puts the overrated USC where everyone's going to be like, see, they're coming. They're bouncing right back. To have, folks, this is the schedule for the last, let's just go the last 6 weeks.
I'm not sure how I feel right now. You're just taking the words out of my mouth right now. I'm agreeing way too much with Chase Thomas right now.
I'll throw some Tennessee stuff.
Because I'm like, they're going to start 6-0.
Yes.
Caleb Williams is going to have 23 touchdown passes in the first 6 weeks. It's like clear back-to-back Heisman. Like, it's all going to happen. They're going to be ranked number 3.
Yeah. Maybe number 1 with how much they're scoring. Like, then you get at Notre Dame, Utah at home, at Cal, Washington at home, at Oregon, UCLA at home. I mean, they're not running through that gauntlet. Like, they're so backloaded with just important big games that I can't hit the over. I think this is a recipe for disaster where like they're going to be feeling themselves, feeling good. Like we're cooking, we're 6-0, we're making it back to the playoff. And then just a gauntlet of a following 6-week stretch. And I just see 2 losses there. I think they go 10-2 and it's a disappointing, forgettable year. Caleb Williams is awesome, but a waste because you didn't address the DC and didn't address the defense this offseason when you could have.
There is another way to look at it though. Like having such a like soft first 6 games of the season, like might allow you to kind of come together. They're bringing a lot of transfers. Like maybe this defense comes together, and by the time you're playing the best competition on your schedule, your team's executing at the highest level. So there is like some advantage to potentially, having all the good teams on the second half of the schedule.
Potentially. I just don't think it's going to go that way.
But yeah,
USC.
It's 5 out of 6 games. It's definitely, that's brutal.
Utah, 8.5. We talked about them a lot here. I think we're both going over, right?
Yeah, I think so. 8.5. I think that's easy. I don't know where I stand as far as this week 1 matchup with the Gators. Like,
what's the current line for that?
Oh, I think it was 4.5 or 5.5. I think no, I think it was like 7.5. I think when I saw it last week.
Utah 8 right now.
8, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then at Baylor in week 2, like that's not a super easy out of conference for Utah. I guess probably one of the more difficult out of conferences in this entire conference.
Florida's 1-7 straight up in their last 8 games on the road.
Florida's 1-7 in their last 8 road games. Wow, I did not know that. And this is the furthest they've traveled for a road game, without a doubt. I know they always talked about Florida never leaving the Southeast for like the longest time.
I mean, that's rough. Yeah, 1-7 straight up against the spread.